They believed you could be controlled, that your silence meant surrender, and your gentleness meant you wouldn't push back. They assumed they could shape your story, twist your name, and dim your light without ever facing the cost. But they were mistaken. What they couldn't see was the force standing behind you. What they failed to understand was that your silence was never weakness. It was alignment. Every whisper they spread, every false move they made in your shadow, every time they tried to make you doubt yourself, it's all circling back now. The confusion they caused has become the fog they're now lost in. While they were busy tearing you down, something powerful was rising within you. Quietly, steadily, unshakably. You chose a higher road. You didn't match their chaos with chaos. And while they assumed your stillness was retreat, it was actually your clarity. You didn't need to chase validation or explain your worth. You allowed time, truth, and divine timing to reveal what was hidden. And now, it's all being seen. Their mask is slipping, the lies are breaking down, and everything they used to attack you has turned on them. You didn't have to seek revenge, you just kept walking in truth. And now, your light is speaking for itself. You're no longer shrinking, you're no longer affected by their noise. The spaces they once tried to box you into, you've outgrown them. Their opinions can no longer hold you. Their bitterness no longer touches you. You moved beyond all of it, because you saw what was real. You felt the shift long before they did. And everything is aligning, not through force, but through truth. Your power came not from fighting, but from continuing to rise. And now nothing can block what's already yours. They worked hard to change how people looked at you. They whispered in corners, twisted facts, and created tension, hoping it would pull attention away from your light. They wanted to see you stressed, doubted, and disconnected. But the energy they sent out didn't vanish. It simply took its time before returning to its source. Every false story they spread, every attempt to turn others against you, is now showing up clearly in their own life. What they meant to use against you is now turning on them. The plans they made in the shadows are falling apart. The ties they once depended on are breaking. The trap they set for you is now the same one closing in around them. You didn't react with noise or try to clear your name through arguments. You chose to stay focused on your growth. You kept working on yourself, healing, and moving forward. You let your life speak for you. And without saying much, your actions began to uncover the truth they tried to hide. With every step you took forward, it became harder for others to believe the lies. Now the very energy they used to harm you is turning into the weight they must carry. Their carefully crafted image is falling apart, and the truth they tried so hard to bury, it's no longer hidden. It's standing out in the open, clear, steady, and impossible to ignore. You didn't need to chase justice. You became proof that truth doesn't need defense, it only needs time. And now, everything they sent your way has returned to them in full. Not because you asked for it, but because that's how energy works. What was done in secret is now being seen. And the truth? It's speaking louder than ever. Pretending can only last so long, and they held on to that act for as long as they could. They learned how to shape themselves to match every space they entered, saying what others wanted to hear, showing smiles that didn't come from truth, and putting on just enough charm to stay admired. But no mask can stay in place forever. Sooner or later, what's underneath begins to show. Now, that moment has arrived. The parts they worked so hard to hide are slipping through the cracks. Their charm, once strong enough to distract, is starting to fade. The stories they used to tell are falling apart under their own weight. And the people who once stood beside them, they're beginning to distance themselves, slowly and quietly, without needing an explanation. You didn't have to step in to prove anything. You didn't have to force the truth to come out. Their actions, their repeated behaviors, the way they couldn't keep their words or stories straight, that told the real story. The silence around them is now louder than any words, and people are beginning to notice what was always there. While they try to hold on to a version of themselves that no longer works, you're moving forward with calm strength. You're not trying to argue. You're not trying to prove your worth. You've grown beyond all of that. You're standing in a space of quiet knowing, clear, steady, and full of light. You no longer need to explain who you are, because your peace speaks for itself. Their performance is falling apart on its own, and you're not looking back. You're simply walking forward, sure of your path, sure of your healing, and sure of the truth that has always been with you. They weren't just threatened by your success. They were triggered by your essence. Your presence reminded them of what they had yet to become. Instead of being inspired, they chose to compete. They mimicked your energy, mirrored your words, even tried to carry your light as if it belonged to them. But imitation can't replace authenticity. Energy doesn't lie, and the universe doesn't miss a thing. Every attempt to confuse your truth with their illusion has been recorded. The masks, the projections, the false narratives, all of it is being cleared away. They aren't just facing consequences, they're facing themselves. And that's the hardest part. Because what they tried to bury in you has risen in them. The chaos they sent your way has revealed the emptiness they were trying to cover. Without your energy to feed from, they're left with their own reflection. And for someone who ran from healing, that reflection is a painful one. You didn't just make it through, you became something more. Every attempt they made to silence you only helped shape your strength. You took isolation and turned it into self-connection. You took rejection and turned it into redirection. You learned to trust your own voice, even when it was the only one you could hear. In that stillness, you found clarity. You found yourself. And with that, you rose, not in noise, not in performance, but in quiet power. You healed in silence. You moved in truth. You transformed in peace. And now, what they once tried to overlook is the very thing they can't ignore. You became untouchable, not through force, but through alignment. You stopped showing up for battles that weren't yours. You stopped entertaining energy that couldn't match your spirit. Their games lost their power because you stopped playing. You built a life beyond the reach of their chaos. And now, your peace is the loudest proof that they never had control. While they were plotting in plain sight, something greater was already moving in silence. Justice doesn't always come loud, but it always comes. And what's happening now? It's not revenge. It's restoration. Doors are closing in their world, not because you asked for it, but because their actions shaped the outcome. The connections they twisted are now untangling. The approval they once chased is fading. The spotlight they wanted has become too hot to handle. This isn't about karma attacking, it's about balance returning. You let go. You trusted me. And now, truth is doing what truth always does. It's realigning everything. You're no longer caught in their web. You're building something rooted in peace, powered by purpose, and protected by divine order. They tried to be the storm in your life, but you became the calm they couldn't shake. And everything you lost along the way, it's returning in ways they can't access. Because it was never meant for them to touch. That connection, that chapter, that weight, they're done. Not because you forced anything, but because the time was up. The role they played in your life no longer fits. And now, while they sit in the chaos they created, you're moving forward into spaces they can't follow. You don't chase closure. You don't need an apology. Your peace is the proof. Your silence speaks volumes. They tried to write your ending, but they didn't realize the story wasn't theirs to control. The moment they moved against someone chosen, protected, and purposed, they sealed their own ending. You've broken free, not just from their drama, but from needing anything from them at all. Their respect, irrelevant. Their understanding, unnecessary. You've stepped fully into your truth. You're becoming everything they said you wouldn't be, and more. The lies have faded, the noise has died down. And what remains is your power, unshaken. Their downfall isn't your triumph, it's just the result of tampering with what they were never meant to hold. You didn't destroy them, you just kept moving forward. And now, they're watching the rise they never saw coming. But the best part? You're not even looking back.